Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Poe, and today I'm doing week 22 of my 2023 reads. This week I read across quite a few different genres and I loved the books that I picked up, although I did DNF one book. Timestamps and content warnings are in the description box below. First, I finished Black Queer Hoe by Britteney Black Rose Kapri, which is a poetry collection that Kazen at Always Doing, who I will link below, absolutely raved about recently. And I was so intrigued by everything that she had to say that I just said, I need to go pick this up right away. And it is just as good as Kazen said. This poetry collection is hilarious. I found it so funny. So in this, Kapri is basically doing a celebration of self. It's just this wonderful, irreverent, no holds barred sort of celebration of who she is, all the facets of her identity, calling out the things that, other people criticize about her and saying, no, I like me for who I am. But also, recognizing some of the issues that she's dealing with, some of, her health issues or her kind of relationship issues or mental health issues or any of these things. And it's just this really funny poetry collection. I laughed so much while reading this collection. It is a little bit filled with swear words and graphic in terms of sex and some other things, but it's just so funny, and I loved the rhythm of the poems, and I loved the way they kind of were put together. There's often also tweets that she has made that are put into kind of in between some of the poems. Yeah, I don't know, this was just such a fun collection. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm so glad that Kazen talked about it recently because I think I'd heard about this kind of floating around for a few years, but Kazen's review is what really made me want to pick this up, and I'm so glad that I did because I absolutely loved this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Blue Jeans by Carolyn Purnell, which is just a micro-history of jeans, and it is fascinating. I love microhistories, and this is one that when I saw that it was going to be coming out, I put it on my anticipated releases list, thinking that could be really interesting, but it actually exceeded all my expectations. This is a pretty short volume. It's part of a series I think it's called Object Lessons, but it's all about just different objects. I really want to go and read some of the other books in this series, although they're not by the same author. They're by many different authors because I just love microhistories, and this one was so good. But I think part of that is the writing. Purnell just did this amazing job. I thought that the writing was really, really engaging and so funny as well, and really informative. Purnell basically covers all sorts of different aspects related to this very, very narrow topic of jeans. She talks about the sort of history of how jeans came into being. There's so much interesting stuff about this when it comes to where the cloth was made and where we get some of the names and the terms for jeans, and how the sort of evolution of manufacturing has gone on. And she talks about a lot of the big issues too, economic impact, ecological impact, worker exploitation. She talks about those big social issues, but then she also talks about really fascinating stuff like just the way that jeans have changed in terms of how popular they are, and how we see them as this incredibly almost non-clothing item. It's just such a default, but that wasn't always the case, and how they can be that and yet also speak so much to your identity. What kind of do you have rips in your jeans? Are they designer jeans? Are there rhinestones? All these sorts of things. Talks about all of these important kind of fashion moments with jeans, things like Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake at the music awards or whatever, when they had jean outfits, all sorts of fascinating social moments. Talks about the way that jeans can be used as a method of resistance, and talks about some of the political movements that have used jeans as an emblem. It is just the most fascinating stuff. Absolutely loved this. If you like microhistories at all, you should definitely pick this up. I just could not get over how fun this was to read, and I was constantly sharing things with Sush, my husband, being like, oh, I didn't know that about jeans. It is so great. Highly recommend this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I finished The Secret of the Jade Bangle by Trinh, illustrated by Clayton Nguyen. This is the first book in the Nguyen Kids series. I accidentally read the second book last week, The Power of the Pearl Earrings, and I had wanted to go back and read the first book, and I loved this. This was so good. So this series is about these siblings who inherit items from their grandmother after she passes away, but those items sort of are imbued with their grandmother's spirit, who kind of helps them when they're dealing with difficult things. And so in this first book, the eldest of these 3 siblings is entering a ballet school, a new ballet school. She is 9 years old, and she's dealing with some kind of racist microaggressions that she just doesn't know how to deal with. She's also dealing with her grandmother's spirit kind of wanting her to take on some of the traditions and the traditional cooking of their family, because as a sort of 3rd generation immigrant, you know, a lot of that has been lost. And so there's just so much about identity, about racism, about family, about history, about food. It is beautiful, exactly the sort of story that I love. I love the use of the Vietnamese language in this. I love the family dynamics. It is excellent, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I did DNF one book, which was We Measure the Earth with Our Bodies by Tsering Yangzom Lama. This is a sort of historical fiction that is following a family as they are refugees from Tibet, I believe in the 1960s when China invaded, and as they go to, I believe, Canada. And so it's kind of following that sort of refugee experience, but also talking about in the more modern day, when they're older, kind of their heritage as they are dealing with some relics that have been taken away from their people. This started out really, really strongly, but about 20 pages in, so just like 5% into the book, there was a really graphic scene talking about frostbite, and then immediately followed talking about kind of malnutrition and its effects on the body. And it was just so body horror adjacent and so early in the book and so strong for me that I realized I probably should not continue with this book. I've noticed that some literary as well as historical fiction authors can be a lot more okay with graphic detail on things that I'm just not okay with, and I decided that I should just play it safe and not continue, even though I was quite enjoying the writing, quite enjoying the setup, just this small village that is kind of invaded by Chinese forces, and the slow way that their people's culture and way of life and beliefs and all sorts of things were really shut down by the invading force. So I think that as long as you're not squeamish like me, if you like historical fiction, for sure, give this one a try. I thought that there was a lot of really cool stuff going on. I'm just a little too squeamish. Okay, that is everything that I read and DNF'd this week. If you guys have read any of these, if you're interested in them, if you want to chat with me about them, or if you want to tell me what you've been reading this week, I'd love to hear from you. Just leave me a comment down below.